What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Wake and J College Football Show. This is your Week 13 preview, and this is kind of it. We've got this weekend, we've got rivalry week next week, and then it's conference championships and playoff pictures set at that point. Bowl games start shortly after. We can see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to the regular season. We are so close to the end. Uh, Bittersweet, I would say, because I never like to see the regular season end, but I'm always excited for the playoffs to start. So it's very bittersweet, but I'm excited. I will say too, this weekend tends to be my least favorite weekend of college football, um, just because of all the SEC teams that take their bye week this weekend. And here's I shouldn't I'm not going to get started on I don't want to get started on a rant too early on in the show when I'm still just in my intro. I try not to be the biggest SEC hater. I know if you talk to fans of other Big Ten teams, they just they just see red when it comes to the SEC. I don't. Um, some of the things that piss off all other Big Ten fans don't bother me nearly as much because I see why the SEC does what they do. The one thing though that I cannot get over though is having these out of conference games, these non-con games so late into the season. And it's not even like they're good non-con games. They're against FCS opponents. I hate that they do these in late November. Just get them all out in the regular or beginning of the regular season. Don't push them to the end like this. I hate that. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. I I don't even hate that they're scheduling the opponents that they're scheduling. I hate when they schedule them. Okay, that's it. Rant over. Let's move on. Typical episode today. Get into some news, which there's some big news to touch on. I am going to touch briefly on the college football playoff rankings. I try not to because they don't matter until the very end, but I'm going to touch on them. We'll go over some Heisman issues that I have. We're going to do a conference outlook, seeing who's still in contention and what they got to do to win the conference or compete for the conference title. And then we'll get into previewing the games and giving out my favorite bets. So let's not waste any more time. Let's have a good wake and bake sesh and get right into it. All right, biggest news of the week. No, it's not Lane Kiffin or his family going to Gainesville and Baton Rouge to check out houses and check out the area. No. Virginia Tech has hired James Franklin. And this has been kind of a rumor for a minute now. I am a little shocked that he took the job. I've had fans from Virginia Tech or just around college football tell me that I shouldn't be shocked. I'm still shocked. It feels like, there's rumors out there that Florida State was his first choice, but Florida State's just not making a decision on Mike Norvell until the season's over. Sounds like he just couldn't hold out any longer and took the Virginia Tech job. Um, I thought maybe he would go to an SEC school. I thought that was quite possible. Um, Apparently, I'm crazy for thinking that. This I did not know. I didn't know that he already had family in that area of Virginia and Blacksburg. So that also makes a little bit of sense. I was unaware of, so I will admit that. I had a lot of people saying, "Well, he's recruited that area. He's got good recruiting tests." Yeah, I get that, and I know that because Penn State's not that far away. Um, I still thought he might go back to the SEC because for those that don't remember, James Franklin was at Vanderbilt before Penn State. Um, I think this is a great hire for Virginia Tech. I think while I thought he was going to try to go for like an SEC school, I do think that this is so much better for James Franklin because we already saw the pressure he was under at Penn State and just couldn't quite get over the hump and eventually cost him his job. Was a he was a great coach at Penn State, just couldn't quite get over that hump. The pressure at Virginia Tech and the pressure of playing in the ACC or coaching in the ACC, significantly less than Penn State in the Big Ten. So I think that's just going to be a sigh of relief for him, breath of fresh air. Um, I I guess I don't know that he's going to be successful. I would assume he's going to be successful. He's been successful everywhere else. But I do think that this is a great hire for Virginia Tech. They got their guy. I think James Franklin was probably at the top of their list ever since he's been fired. Um, yeah, I'm excited to see Virginia Tech. It would be nice to see them uh, be good for once because it's been a minute since they were actually good. Uh, I got to talk on Heisman. So here's the thing, Marcel Reed. I I have not been. I okay. So preface this by saying I have a future on Texas A&M to make the playoffs. I put it in before the season started, and so I'm rooting for Marcel Reed. I am rooting for Texas A&M. I have not been impressed by Marcel Reed so far this season. He just makes a lot of throws every single game that just make you scratch your head. And that was no different this last weekend against South Carolina, where he had the worst first half I've ever seen. Um, turned it. Don't get me wrong, he played great in the second half, and I'm not discounting that. I know Marcel Reed has his moments where he looks phenomenal, but he also has so many moments where he just does not look good. Go back to the Notre Dame game. People were giving Marcel Reed a lot of praise, but he went like 17 of 40 or something crazy like that. Like he wasn't throwing the ball very well. He had a lot of ugly throws, but he has two great receivers who are great at getting yards after the catch. Marcel Reed should not have had his Heisman odds get better after that performance. It's almost like they just forgot about that first quarter or first half and maybe haven't even watched him all season where he just has so many bad plays, so many bad throws, so many good throws, so many great throws, great plays. Don't get me wrong, but so many bad as well. I just for his odds to get better after that just seemed a little crazy to me. Right now, according to FanDuel, you got Fernando Mendoza at plus 100. He's the betting favorite right now. Julian Sayin at plus 200. And by the way, I'll admit I did put these numbers down a couple days ago. They may have shifted slightly. I don't know. Marcel Reed at plus 550, Diego Pavia at 1500, and then Gunnar Stockton coming in fifth at plus 2500. I don't. I, I already complained in the last episode about how Jeremiah Love deserves more Heisman hype. That's honestly a big reason why we're talking about the Heisman today. Is just because I need to reiterate that Jeremiah Love deserves more love, pun intended, for the Heisman, more hype for the Heisman. He needs to be a higher candidate for the Heisman. I'm not sitting here saying that he should win, although I would love it if he did. I do have a future on him to win the Heisman, um, but that's not even why I'm pushing this. He deserves to be at least top five. Again, I'm not even saying he deserves to win it, but he should be top five. Here is who I would have as my top five, um, and this is in no particular order. Julian Sayin, I do think should be in top five. Fernando Mendoza, I do believe should be in the top five. I do think that Gunnar Stockton probably should be in the top five, and I'll list a couple other guys that you could argue for. Jeremiah Love definitely deserves to be in the top five. And this one might be where people are like, dude, what? I think Haynes King deserves to be in the top five. I do. I am a huge Haynes King fan. I've been saying it every single time Virginia, Georgia Tech plays it. Going back to last year, if Haynes King plays, Georgia Tech has a chance, and that just remains true every single time he steps on the field. He is the most important player for that team, for that offense. I think Haynes King should be top five. Obviously, people are going to make the argument for Marcel Reed. I just don't agree. You could argue Ty Simpson should be in the top five. I don't. I'll listen to that argument. Jacob Rodriguez. I mean, defensive players very rarely win it. We did see Travis Hunter do it, but he was also a two-way player. Jacob Rodriguez did have a rushing touchdown this last week, but he's not an offensive player, but he has forced like 9 fumbles, a couple interceptions, now 2 touchdowns, something like that. Just he's been a beast for that Texas Tech defense. So he deserves some love too. I don't know about top 5, but he deserves love at least. Um, this award's always going to be a quarterback award at this point. It is going to be. It's not going to be often that we see other positions win. Um, and it's unfortunate that it's become that. Isn't that what the Davey O'Brien Award is for the best quarterback? So I don't know why we have that unwritten rule that the quarterback is going to win the Heisman every single year. It goes to the best player, and I think there's a few: Jacob Rodriguez, Jeremiah Love, Ahmad Hardy, Emmett Johnson, I guess, even Jeremiah Smith. There are players at other positions that do deserve the love for the Heisman and should get more hype, but it's just a quarterback award at this point. All right, let's run through conferences real quick with just 2 weekends left, and some teams only have, well, and in Georgia's case, we'll get into this, have no more conference games until potentially conference title. So in the Big Ten, you've got Indiana at 8-0 in the conference. They've got one more game against Purdue on the road. I don't like to use the word guarantee, but I mean Indiana's guaranteed to go undefeated in Big Ten play. Ohio State, they're 7-0 currently. Games against Rutgers, which and don't like to use the word guarantee, but that's, I mean, Ohio State's going into the Michigan game undefeated. Let's just put it that way. But they do have to go on the road to Michigan, so that's they kind of have to win out, but or hope for a couple losses here. USC currently 6-1 in conference. They are at Oregon and then home against UCLA. Neither one's a guaranteed win. Obviously, Oregon's not. You're on the road at Oregon. Oregon's a very good team, and we're going to talk about them in a second here. But UCLA's a rivalry game. There's no guarantee in a rivalry game. Oregon, they are also 6-1 in the conference. Home game against USC, and then they are at Washington. Oregon also does not have an easy path to playing for a conference title. Both of these teams would need to win out basically, and I mean, one of them is getting eliminated this weekend from contention. So we'll see. This list will get smaller because also we've got Michigan, who is 6-1 in conference, and they play at Maryland, which we're going to touch on a little later. That's not a guaranteed win for them. Some people might think that's crazy. Some people may ask, dude, are you high? Yes, but it's possible. We'll get into it. And then they finish at home against Ohio State. So as I mean, Indiana essentially has solidified their spot. A couple of these teams are going to eliminate each other over the next week or two, so this list will be much more defined after this weekend. We'll have a much better idea. Big 12, you got Texas Tech, who is 7-1 in conference. They have one more game against West Virginia. Again, don't like to use the word guarantee, but that feels like a guaranteed win, which means Texas Tech would be in the Big 12 championship. You got BYU at 6-1. They play at Cincinnati, not necessarily a win, and then home against UCF. A good chance they win that game. They win out. They're in the Big 12 championship game. And then we've got a couple 2-loss teams. We got Cincinnati. They're 5-2 in conference. They play BYU and at TCU. Well, if they win this weekend, they're still alive, and BYU's chances become significantly worse. But if they lose, they're out. We got Arizona State, who is 5-2 in conference. They go at Colorado, which Colorado's a poverty team. And then they finish with Arizona. That's a rivalry game, not a guaranteed win. Houston is 5-2 in conference. They finish home against TCU this weekend and then at Baylor. I mean, I guess, yeah, neither one's guaranteed for them. And then you got Utah, 5-2, home against Kansas State, on the road at Kansas. Neither team really scares me. I think Utah probably finishes the season 7-2 in conference, but they do need Texas Tech or BYU to lose a game for them to even have a shot. And funny thing, Utah's 2 conference losses are both to both BYU and Texas Tech. So um, it's I'm pretty confident it's going to be Texas Tech and BYU. In the SEC, we've got Texas A&M 7-0 in conference. They finish at home again, or are they on the road? They actually might be on the road for that one. They finish with Texas. I know that. Um, I mean, beat Texas and you're in. You win against Texas. You could even lose this weekend, which yikes. Wait, no, they don't even play this weekend. I don't know. If they do play this weekend, I don't have their game. It's one of the SEC FCS games. Um, if you finish against Texas, you're undefeated in conference. You're playing for an SEC title. Georgia already finished their conference play. They are 7-1 in the SEC this year. Um, they they need some teams to lose. They need Ole Miss to lose to Mississippi State. They need Alabama to lose to Auburn. Because both teams are also 6-1 in conference. Will be 7-1 if they win those games. Makes it much more messy. I don't. The tiebreakers get weird, and we kind of need to wait for the season to end to see how those tiebreakers would work out. But I mean, Alabama's got the head-to-head win against Georgia. Um, Ole Miss has a loss against Georgia, so I think it would work out that if Alabama beats Auburn, I'm pretty sure they're just in, automatically in. So it's if they lose to Auburn, that things start to get messy. And then lastly, we got the ACC. Georgia Tech 6-1 in conference. They finished with Pitt, and then they got Georgia, but that's not a conference game. Virginia, they are also 6-1 in conference. They finished with Virginia Tech. That is a rivalry game. That's one of the ones I'm less confident in that the underdog could win it. We got Pitt at 5-1. They still have 2 games remaining. Georgia Tech, which one of those teams is going to make their odds significantly better and worse. Well, one would essentially clinch a spot, Georgia Tech, and then they play Miami, who is currently 4-2 in conference. Their chances of competing for the title are very, very slim. They finish at Virginia Tech and then against Pitt. SMU is also 5-1 in conference. They play Louisville this weekend, then they finish the season at Cal, and then Duke, a very long shot to win to compete for a title. They are at UNC, home against Wake Forest. The way it's set up right now, Georgia Tech and Virginia are looking to meet up, but Pitt and SMU, they could have something to say about that for sure. I guess Miami could too, but some things would have to happen. So yeah, a lot of these conference races are going to become a lot more clear after this weekend, and we're going to have a much better idea. Some of these teams like could clinch a spot essentially in the conference title game this weekend. All right, let's preview some games. And just like last week, right off the bat, Minnesota Minute. Okay, so Minnesota goes on the road to Northwestern. They're playing in Wrigley, which I don't love football games in baseball stadiums. And this is somebody who grew up in Minnesota going to the Metrodome. Not a fan. Now, obviously, that was different. They molded it. I didn't like it like when they did it in Oakland and whatnot. I just never liked. I don't like it when they do it at Yankee Stadium. I don't like football games in a baseball stadium. Northwestern 3.5 point favorite at home. That line has moved from like 5.5 now, I believe, is where it started. I mean, we just watched Minnesota get brutalized by Oregon, and Northwestern. Michigan tried so hard to give you that game, and you just wouldn't take it, couldn't take it. I don't know. At 5 turnovers, but nearly 500. It just brutal game for Northwestern. Tough game to lose, especially just last second field goal. Michigan tried. They tried to give it to you, and you just wouldn't take it. Northwestern's a 5-5 team, And when you think of Northwestern teams of old, you think it's going to be a solid defense. We're going back to like the Pat Fitzgerald days. Uh, it's going to be a good defense, pretty bad offense, but they can run the ball a little bit. That's exactly what Northwestern is this year. They've got a solid defense. Their offense sucks, but they can run the ball a little bit. So it's exactly what you expect from Northwestern going into this week or this season. Um, this game is very winnable for the Gophers. And here's the thing: Minnesota is currently winless on the road. And granted, they've played teams like Oregon, Ohio State, and Iowa on the road. So I mean, it's hard to win those games. And then Cal, I don't even want to talk about that one. So there is that monkey off the back that they got to try to get. Where did that weird? Um, they're winless on the road. They got to win on the road, and this is a very winnable game. It's also a very losable game because Northwestern is they're a tough team. They really are. They put up a fight against everybody they play. Now they have lost three straight, but if you look, they came back from 21-6 against Nebraska, and then Nebraska had to win it late in the fourth quarter. Um, that first half against USC gave USC everything they had. USC was struggling, and then there was that fluke play, absolute fluke play at the end of the first half, which completely shifted momentum in that game. And instead of Northwestern going up, like what was it? Would have been 24-17, or maybe I don't know. They would have been up on USC instead of down going into halftime, or possibly tied going into halftime. It just completely changed the momentum of that game. And then last week, Michigan just tried to give you the game. You wouldn't take it, and you ended up losing. So they're putting up a fight. They are a decent team, but they just can't quite pull through. Now, I mentioned it, Northwestern offensively, they can run the ball a little bit. They suck at throwing the ball, which, knowing how it's gone for Minnesota this year, Preston Stone's going to have his best game of the year. So far this year, he's only hit 200 yards twice. It was against Western Illinois and ULM. So he hasn't hit 200 yards against a Power 4 opponent. I just want to put that into perspective, just how bad he's been this year. Here's the thing, though. Minnesota's secondary has gotten torched the last 2 weeks. Michigan State, Oregon, both torched the secondary. That's why, I mean, Preston Stone has his game of the year. I'm not going to be that shocked, but at the same time, I really don't expect Northwestern to have much success through the air. The Northwestern defense, last weekend they got torched on the ground by Michigan. Michigan's elite at running the ball. They got torched the game before against USC through the air. USC's elite at throwing the ball. Here's what the Gophers are not. They are not elite at running the ball. They are not elite at throwing the ball. In fact, they actually suck. They suck at both. They are 126th in rushing, 102nd in passing. Drake Lindsey, he's only hit 200 yards once in the last 6 games. 3 of those games he was held to less than 150 yards, and then I think he had 154 against, maybe it was Oregon that he had 154 against. It hasn't been pretty for the offense. Running game, they've been held under 70 yards rushing as a team 5 of the last 7 games. I'm not exaggerating when I say they suck. It's been terrible. Darius Taylor is back, and with him back and looking healthy, there is going to be more life to this offense. But we just have not seen it consistently to the point where I'm just not that confident. That being said, I have no confidence in Northwestern's offense to do anything. I think this is going to be an ugly offensive game for both teams, but Minnesota wins. We've got number 22 Mizzou at number 8 Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a 7.5 point favorite at home. Here's the thing about Missouri. I don't feel like they deserve to be ranked. I feel like there's a couple other 7-3 teams that could be ranked over them. Missouri fans were not happy with me on Twitter when I was posting stuff about that. But um, before the Bo Pribula injury, and by the way, uh, I thought he was done for the rest of the regular season. I guess there was a very slim chance, and actually, I guess still is because he's listed as doubtful. Um, there's a chance he's playing this week or next, which is insane. The fact that he's even on the injury report as doubtful and not out, crazy. Um, but if he was still the quarterback, I would give Mizzou a good chance to win this game because he has shown the ability to throw the ball a little better than Matt Zollers. Through two starts, Matt Zollers is 15 of 37, which is 40.5% completion percentage, 189 total yards through the air, uh, two touchdowns, one interception. Not great. Um, Offensively for Mizzou, the strength of this team is definitely running the ball. We all know it. We've all seen it. Ahmad Hardy having a great season. He is coming off a 300-yard game and three touchdowns against Mississippi State. I think they're the sixth team in the country when it comes to rushing. So running the ball is important to this offense. If they can't run the ball, they struggle. We've seen it this year. Ahmad Hardy had about a 2 to 3 game stretch where he just really wasn't having great games, and Missouri struggled during that period. Um, this Oklahoma run defense, I've been critical of their pass defense because they are susceptible to the pass when they actually face good passing attacks. Tennessee, Ole Miss, Alabama, they do get torched. Now, I know Ty Simpson got shut down in that second half. I understand that he torched them in that first half. Don't even. Oklahoma's defense is susceptible to the pass, but they're very good against the run. Only 3 teams have hit 100 yards on the ground so far against Oklahoma: Ole Miss, Texas, and Michigan. Michigan had 146, Texas with 136, and Ole Miss with 116. This is going to be the best rushing attack that Oklahoma has had to face this year. At the same time, though, this is going to be the best run defense that Mizzou has faced. They have faced 4 other run defenses in the top 50. Those also happen to be some of the games that Ahmad Hardy had his worst performances of the season. So I feel like you're going strength on strength. One's got to prevail. I'm leaning towards Oklahoma's defense to prevail against Mizzou's run offense, rushing attack. So, and we've already seen it. Matt Zollers can't throw for crap. So Mizzou's definitely not going to exploit the weakness of this Oklahoma defense. He just doesn't have the ability to do that. So they're going to have to run the ball. Oklahoma's going to dominate Missouri offensively. Now, I haven't even talked about how bad Oklahoma's offense is or how good Mizzou's defense is. I just fully expect the offense to struggle all game. I expect Mizzou's defense to make plenty of stops. Where this game is won and lost is Oklahoma's run defense versus Mizzou's rushing attack. I think because Oklahoma's defense, I give the edge to the run defense. I do think Oklahoma wins this game. I do think this game is probably much closer than people would like to think. Kansas at Iowa State. Iowa State is a 3.5 point favorite at home. I mean, what a roller coaster of a season to be an Iowa State fan. You start the season 5-0, you lose 4 straight. Just brutal. I understand lots of injuries. That's tough. That makes it hard to win, obviously. But they're still fighting. They have not given up. And I do think that despite the injuries, despite the 4 game losing streak, despite their record, I do think Iowa State is a good team. Um, Kansas, on the other hand, good is not a word that I would use to describe them. I would probably lean more towards just average, really. I'm not even going to say they're a bad team. They're just average. They're 5-5, which, again, you're just average. Um, like you look at them offensively, they're not great at any one thing. They're not the worst or terrible necessarily at anything, but they're not good. I'll be nice. One good thing that Kansas has going for them offensively, they don't turn the ball over. They had 4 turnovers against Kansas State. In their other 9 games, they've had four. No, five. So 9 turnovers on the season, four came in one game. That's not so bad. Defensively, I mean, they're not average. I guess they're more towards the bad. They're okay at a lot of things. They're bad at stopping the run. So they're average offensively. They're a little more bad defensively. They do struggle a lot to stop the run. Um, Iowa State has been running the ball pretty well the last few games. Last 5 games actually, they are averaging 177 yards a game. And that's against better run defenses than what Kansas has. So that's encouraging if you're an Iowa State fan. Carson Hansen, he's been going off the last 3 games. 120 plus yards a game over the last three and like 6 yards a carry. Um, that's not bad. Uh, Iowa State, both teams actually, both teams have had a rough stretch. If we're going to be completely honest, it's just been a rough stretch for both teams. Kansas has lost 3 of their last 4. Iowa State, they've lost 4 of their last 5. Um, again, I do think Kansas is average. If you go back and look too at the teams that Kansas has beat and their combined record, I think their combined record is like 20, 21 and 31, something like that. Very lopsided, basically. And 2 of those wins, one's a group of 5 team. It was Fresno State, and then I think it was Wagner, maybe, who is an FCS school. So I mean, they don't have the greatest wins. And then you look at their losses, and it's all against teams with winning records. It's like a combined like 30 something and 10 or something like that. Just again lopsided in the other direction. Kansas is just they're an average team. They're going to beat bad teams, lose to good teams. I do think Iowa State is a better team than Kansas. Give me Iowa State in this one. Baylor at Arizona. Arizona is a 6.5 point favorite at home. The disrespect to not rank Arizona. I'm officially an Arizona fan the rest of the season. I've decided that. I feel like they're not getting enough love. Arizona fans may tell you that they don't want the love. They want to keep the underrated status, and trust me, I completely agree with that. Uh, I'm here to inform you, Arizona fans. Don't worry, I'm not going to bring too much attention to your program. I don't get enough viewers to make them be underrated or to be overrated or not overrated. That was the wrong word choice. To have too much spotlight on them. Um, don't worry, I'm an Arizona fan the rest of the season. Um, Baylor has lost 3 of their last 4. Arizona has won 3 straight. Uh, and again, the disrespect to not rank Arizona because they deserve attention. They deserve respect. Their defense is good. They're 30th in scoring, 19th in total yards, 7th in passing yards allowed. I'm just hoping. Well, you know what? They're not ranked yet, so I'm not even worried about this because we want them to be underrated. They're underrated. They're still underrated because they're not ranked. So they're not going to collapse. There's no pressure to collapse under. Um, I like Arizona in this one if you can't tell. Now, last week against Cincinnati, which was an upset that I told you Arizona was going to win. Um, you could argue Arizona should have beaten Cincinnati by more than they did, and I completely agree with you. They left points on the field. They missed a couple of field goals. They had a few drives get inside Cincinnati's like 10-yard line. That they ended up settling for field goals. I mean, if you're getting inside the 10-yard line, you got to come away with a touchdown. You could argue that game should have been a blowout. Just could not capitalize, which is unfortunate. And I'll be honest, I haven't watched enough Arizona to know if that's been an issue all year of just not being able to capitalize with that. From what I've gathered from Arizona fans, that may have been the case in a couple losses this season. So I'm hoping that doesn't rear its ugly head, especially against Baylor. Um, who, by the way, like I mentioned, has lost like 3 of the last 4, coming off an ass whooping against Utah. Just dominated. It was like 55-28. So going up against a good defense, Baylor's offense still scored 28 points, had like 500 yards of offense, a couple turnovers, but whatever. Threw the ball for 430 yards. It's still a very good Baylor offense, and they're going to have their moments this weekend. They really are. It's obviously, as I've said week after week, it's Baylor's defense that has to worry you. Over the last 5 games, they're allowing 215 yards per game on the ground and just over 400 yards a game total. That's not ideal if you're a Baylor fan. That's not something you want to hear. Uh, Here's probably something else you don't want to hear. Arizona's offense over the last 5 games, they're averaging 165 yards on the ground. Um, that's not like blowing you away. I understand that, but that's still pretty decent. And going up against a bad run defense, I expected the number to be a little higher than that. And then nearly 400 yards of total offense a game, which is right on par with what Baylor's been allowing. The only thing that's not clicking for Arizona right now is just finishing drives. That's really it is. That's really all it is. Everything else has been fantastic. They've been great. Defense has been solid. I don't expect a shutout, or I shouldn't say a shutout because obviously I don't expect a shutout. But defense has been solid enough that Baylor's not going to score enough to win this game. The defense for Baylor is obviously not going to stop Arizona. They can just capitalize on some of those drives. I do expect Arizona to win this game. Number 15 USC at number 7 Oregon. Oregon's a 9.5 point favorite. I think that number started at like 7.5, and it's just gone up, or maybe 8.5. I don't remember. People are really back in Oregon in this one, and I guess there's it has a little bit of a theme this weekend. I kind of am pulling for underdogs in this week, because I kind of believe in USC to at least cover this weekend. I'm not going to say they flat out win, but they could. Um, this is the weekend that we really see what both of these teams are made of. USC's got the number 10 passing attack. Oregon's got the number 1 pass defense. But here's the catch. When you look at every single team that Oregon has faced, they have faced 6 teams that are ranked 100th or worse in passing. Now, they've faced 2 top 50 teams when it comes to throwing the ball, but 6 teams that are 100th or worse when it comes to passing. Oregon hasn't been tested that much. On the flip side, USC has a little bit. They have faced 3 top 31 pass defenses. Nebraska, Iowa, Northwestern. Against Nebraska, he was Jaden Mayava. I say he. I was talking about USC, but Jaden Mayava, 9 of 23 versus Nebraska, 135 yards and an interception. Struggled. Against Iowa, 23 of 32, 254 and a touchdown. Much better. Northwestern, 24 of 33, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's also not bad. He's faced some stingy pass defenses, and he's done pretty well. Oregon has really not been tested. I think USC could win this game. I'm really curious to see how Oregon's secondary holds up here. Now, here's the thing. Oregon's offense, they can kill you any way, shape, or form. They can run the ball, throw the ball. There's no stopping what they can do. You stop them one way, they'll just whip it out the other way. USC's defense, they're fine. They're not great, but they're fine. I think Oregon has their way offensively with USC. I really do. I really think there's 2 ways that this game goes. Either Oregon's pass defense is for real and completely shuts down USC's passing attack, and then Oregon's offense just absolutely goes off and this is a complete blowout. Or Oregon's secondary is not for real. USC is able to score quite a bit with the throwing the ball, and Oregon's offense still goes off for a lot of points, and we have a absolute not blowout, that was the wrong word choice. A very exciting, explosive game. Where it's a one score game and it's like 30 something to 40 something or 40 something to 40 something. It's either blowout Oregon or it's a close win either way. Because I just really don't think USC is going to stop Oregon's offense at all. I just don't see that happening. But now that I said that out loud, it's going to happen. Let's be honest. Uh, I'll briefly touch on this one. Duke at North Carolina. Duke is it? Or not Duke. North Carolina is a 6.5 point dog at home. Duke, similar to Kansas, actually. Duke is 5-5. 5 wins are against teams with a combined record of 24-27, and their 5 losses come against teams with a combined record of 41-11. Um, they don't win against good teams. So by that trend, they should win this game because UNC is 4-6. But here's the thing about UNC. They're 4-6. They are 4-0 when they can score 20 or more points, and they are 0-6 when they can't even get to 20 points. Duke does not have a good defense. Now, UNC's offense obviously is terrible, but Duke doesn't have a great defense. I do think that North Carolina can score 20 points. Now, I'm curious how North Carolina's defense will do against this Duke offense because Duke has a very good offense. Um, so that's where this battle is probably going to be on because I do expect North Carolina to score 20 points. But do they keep the trend going of when they score 20 or more, they're or they're undefeated, or do they finally lose a game where they score 20 plus? Both have trends that work in their favor. One of those trends is going to get broken essentially. Um, I'm not picking a winner in this one, honestly. I don't I don't trust either team to be completely honest with you. Uh, we'll just Kansas State at Utah. Utah's number 12 team in the country. They're 17.5 point favorites at home. Give me Utah. Pitt at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is the 16th team in the country, which I didn't even get into it. All right, you know what? We're just going to talk about the playoff rankings right now. Because I completely forgot to do that at the beginning. I First of all, Mizzou does not deserve to be ranked. I already discussed that earlier. Somehow that didn't trigger the fact that I didn't go on my rant yet. Notre Dame is ranked above BYU and Alabama. Those were the 2 teams that I saw the biggest complaints. Oh, and Miami. Notre Dame's ranked ahead of all of them. I can't really argue BYU probably because BYU's best only good win is Utah, I guess you would say. I would say Arizona's a good win too. I think BYU is maybe getting the shaft a little bit, and I know I feel like the way the committee's looking at it is you take Notre Dame, you put BYU on a neutral field. Who do you think is going to win? You'd be lying unless you're a BYU fan, you're probably lying to yourself if you say, well, BYU would win that game. BYU would be favored. No, Notre Dame would be favored. We all know it. Um, so I think that's why Notre Dame is ahead of BYU. Why are they above Miami after Miami beat them? Here's why I think they're above Miami. I'm not saying it's correct or that it should be this way, but this is why I think they're above Miami. It was the first game of the season. We have seen, and I'm not saying you should completely forget it because it was the first game of the season, but I think we do have to keep in mind it was a freshman quarterback. He finally got his legs under him by the fourth quarter and then just has blossomed since. It's a team you saw Notre Dame get significantly better as the season has gone on, especially that defense. The offense has been the same all year, essentially. Whereas Miami started the season hot and then has just kind of not been hot and then got hot again. And they had that up and down where Notre Dame was kind of just a steady incline. And I do believe that similar to BYU, you put these teams on a neutral field, there is a chance that Notre Dame is favored in that game. Just saying. Miami fans may not want to hear that. There is a chance, though, that Notre Dame would be favored on a neutral field. And I think that's why we see Notre Dame ahead of BYU, why we see them ahead of Miami. Because again, at this point in the season, I think they would be favored against Miami. Now, why are they ahead of Alabama? That's a good question, honestly. And I don't think I have an answer for that one. I'm not obviously as upset about it because these aren't the final rankings. They don't matter. We still got a couple weeks until they matter. That one I can't argue one way or the other. I don't really know why they're ahead of Alabama. Now, another thing is Tulane. Tulane is the highest Group of Five team. I don't I don't hate it. Again, it's also not final. They probably won't be there at the end of the season if I'm being completely honest. I don't they're not in the driver's seat for the American. So I mean there's a very good chance that they're just not in that spot. But if you look if you look at Tulane's wins, I'm not looking at losses, I'm looking at wins. I think their wins significantly trump anything that North Texas has, that JMU has, that Navy has, San Diego State, whoever else you want to throw out there. I do think that they have better overall wins. Um, Again, I don't know that they'll necessarily be there. What I think is going to happen is whoever wins the American probably makes the playoff, unless somehow there's a couple more losses in there than JMU takes it. But I don't hate that Tulane is the highest ranked group of five. Um, Well, there was one more. Oh, the other. Okay, this one I do have a complaint about, but I'm trying not to get too worked up about it because, again, it doesn't matter yet. Why is Miami making the playoff? Why do they have Miami, who I don't think is technically mathematically eliminated, but they're as good as eliminated from winning the ACC? It's a Virginia Tech and or Virginia Tech. It's a Virginia and Georgia Tech um, ACC to lose right now. The fact that Miami is ranked above both of those teams isn't the most upsetting part. It's the fact that they have Miami making the playoff over both of those teams. As of right now, if the season ended right this second, Miami would make the playoff, and Georgia Tech, who has one loss, and Virginia, who I guess technically has two losses, but only has one ACC loss, who would be competing for the ACC championship, don't get into the playoff over Miami. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Miami should not be making the playoff right now. They should not be ranked that high. That one did bother me, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. Outside of that, I didn't really have too many complaints otherwise. Um, I mean, the top four seeds, we all, I think, are unanimous. Those are the top four seeds. The next few after that, can't really argue too much. Again, Notre Dame, I completely understand, especially if you're an Alabama fan, why you'd be upset about that. But Miami does not deserve to be ranked that high. Absolutely not. All right. Uh, Nebraska at Penn State. Penn State's an 8.5 point favorite at home, um, which might seem shocking to some people. Honestly, I'm not surprised by that. Nebraska's coming off a bye. Their last game against UCLA, TJ Lateef. Nebraska did such a good job with him, getting him comfortable, giving him easy throws, getting him out of the pocket. He looked phenomenal in his first start. Um, Emmett Johnson helped a lot with that. Don't get me wrong; he also had a great game. Um, but I don't know. I don't expect them to have a good game against Penn State, if I'm going to be completely honest. Um, Penn State got their first Big Ten win last week, snapping a six-game losing streak. They are 4-6 on the season. The season is an absolute disaster. But Penn State still has a lot of talent on that team, and they're still fighting. Here's the thing: six-game losing streak. 5 of those 6 games were one-score losses. The only one that was not was Ohio State. So, that's Ohio State though. That includes games against Indiana, Oregon, Iowa. It's not like they were playing mediocre to bad teams. No, they were playing some good teams and still keeping it to be a one-score game. Um, Defense for Penn State has been they've been all right. They've been fine, solid, I guess. But these last two games against Indiana and Michigan State, they have really stepped up. Um, it was they allowed 101 yards on the ground to Indiana, and then 108 to Michigan State, or maybe that's flip flop. That might be flipped. Um, Fernando Mendoza only threw for like 218 yards against Penn State. Um, I can't say Michigan State's quarterback's name. I just can't pronounce it. He only threw for like 150 something. Um, they've got 8 sacks in the last two games, 16 tackles for loss. And if you don't know this about Nebraska's offensive line, they're not good. They're not good, especially at protecting the quarterback. I expect Penn State's defense to get after Latif. Um, on the flip side, Nebraska's run defense, absolutely terrible. Has been brutal all season. I fully expect Singleton and Allen to just go off against this Nebraska defense. I really think that this might be a blowout in Penn State's favor. Let's see. Tennessee at Florida. Tennessee's the number 20 team in the country. Florida's a 3.5 point dog at home. I don't know how to read this game, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, because I don't know what Florida we're getting. Do we get the Florida that cares or the Florida that doesn't care? I don't know, because I don't know how to read them. I don't know what they're doing week to week. Are they going to put up a fight, or are they just going to roll over and not care? I really don't know. I do think Tennessee wins this game, though. That I do think, but I don't know. Is it a close game? Is it a blowout? Is it a Texas A&M South Carolina situation from last week? I don't know, because I don't know. Now every offense that's gone against Tennessee has had success, so maybe we do see fight from Florida because they just it's hard. It's too hard to not put up a fight against that defense. I don't know. Tennessee wins, but I can't read this game. Let's see. We've got number 11 BYU at Cincinnati. Cincinnati 2.5 point dog at home. I mean, we already kind of talked about it earlier. I put Cincinnati on upset alert last week against Arizona. My biggest reason for doing that is because Brendan Sorsby struggles when he's got to go up against a good defense. That proved to be true last week, and I think that based on that trend, it continues this week as well because BYU has a great defense. I fully expect Brendan Sorsby to struggle again this week. The other thing that does not really go in their favor, Cincinnati, over the last 5 games, has allowed teams to run it for nearly 200 yards a game against them. And if you don't know this about Cincinnati as well, they are one of the worst teams in the country at controlling the clock. They very rarely win time of possession. In fact, they are typically losing the time of possession by like 10 minutes or more. It is one of the worst I've ever seen. I shouldn't say ever seen. Um, it's definitely one of the worst this year, though. They cannot control the clock for the life of them. So you can't control the clock. Your defense is allowing nearly 200 yards a game on the ground, and Brendan Sorsby struggles when has to go up against a good defense. And then you're going up against a good defense, a team that has the ability to run the ball very well. They're 21st in the country in rushing. And because Cincinnati makes it so easy to control the clock, they're probably going to control the clock. This feels like it's a disaster game for Cincinnati. Give me BYU. Number 25, Arizona State at Colorado. Colorado 7.5 point dog at home. Brutal. Um, I'm going back to the well on this one. You're probably going to get sick of hearing this. Colorado poverty team, dead team. I'm just going to run through it quickly. Terrible run defense. Can't stop a mobile quarterback. Oh, guess what? They're going up against a team that is great at running the ball. They got a great mobile I shouldn't say great, but they've got a very mobile quarterback. A team that still has life to them and is not dead and is not a poverty team. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Arizona State is going to destroy Colorado and run all over them. Jeff Sims, as long as he doesn't fumble it 2 or 3 times, should have no problem running on this Colorado defense. He's got 309 rushing yards over the last 2 games. Jordan Tyson might be back this weekend. I don't know officially on that one, but I know that's where he was trending towards was Colorado. One good thing about Colorado, Julian Lewis, he did look good against West Virginia. Now, granted, that was West Virginia. This is an Arizona State defense that is better than West Virginia. I still think Arizona State wins this one by a lot. A couple other games to touch on briefly. Rutgers at number 1, Ohio State. Ohio State's 32.5 point favorites. Ohio State by a million. That's it. Number 13, Miami at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is 18.5 point dogs at home. Again, this week I'm putting Miami back on upset alerts. Same reason as last week. It's Carson Beck. It's Mario Cristobal. Any game is losable at this point. Now, on paper, Miami should dominate this game. You just never know with that combination, though. Syracuse at number 9, Notre Dame. Notre Dame 35.5 point favorites at home. Notre Dame had their final, test last week against Pitt. Because, this is not going to be a test for Notre Dame. Syracuse has been terrible offensively since Steve Angeli went down. They have lost 6 straight games. And in those 6 games, here's how bad the offense and defense have been during this 6-game losing streak. The offense is scoring 11.7 points per game and 288 yards a game. The defense is allowing 34 points a game and 413 yards a game. They are also losing the turnover battle by 10. They have turned the ball over 14 times and only forced 4 turnovers. Jeremiah Love and this Notre Dame offense are going to feast on Syracuse. Notre Dame by a million. I did promise we would touch on this one. Number 18, Michigan at Maryland. Maryland is a 13.5 point dog at home. I'm putting Michigan on upset alert. There, I said it. They're on upset alert. They tried their hardest last week to give that game away to Northwestern, and Northwestern just wouldn't take it. Nearly 500 yards of offense, ran the ball very well, threw the ball relatively well, but 5 turnovers. And had to rely on a last-second field goal to win. Not ideal. Now they go on the road to Maryland, who has not won a game in October or November. I've told you guys, and I've told myself, do not believe in Maryland in the months of October, November. I did it a couple times this year, and it bit me in the ass. But guess what? I'm kind of doing it again. It's probably going to bite me in the ass. But Maryland's on a 6-game losing streak heading into this one. The offense, they've struggled to score over the last 4. Defense, they have been allowing teams to score quite a bit over the last 4 as well. The offense is scoring just over 13 points a game. Defense is allowing over 33 points a game. And you might think I'm a little crazy by backing Maryland and by saying that Michigan's on upset alert, but just let me cook for a sec. Michigan does have the 12th best rushing attack in the country. Justice Haynes is out for the rest of the regular season, it sounds like. So they have been out, and they have already been without him for the last 2 games. So, this is not like news. Well, it is news, but it's not new. Jordan Marshall, he has stepped up the last 2 games. He has got 44 carries, 327 yards, 5 touchdowns, 7.4 yards per carry over the last 2 games. And here's the thing about Maryland. They're terrible at stopping the run. Over the last 4 games, teams are averaging 260 yards on the ground and have been absolutely dominating the time of possession against Maryland. All that said, you still are probably wondering, why are you backing Maryland? Because Michigan really has not been that impressive against teams that they should beat by a lot. That's why. Michigan shouldn't have as much trouble as they did against Northwestern in this game. They really shouldn't. This shouldn't come down to a last second field goal. They should dominate from start to finish. I'm slightly worried though, because Michigan's been a little turnover prone lately. 5 turnovers last week, like I mentioned. 5 turnovers over the previous 4 games before that, which I guess doesn't sound like a lot, but still, you're turning the ball over consistently at least once a game, and then 5 times last week. Um, I mean, if they can't figure out how to hold on the ball, this game's gonna be a lot closer. But here's the biggest reason why I have Maryland at least covering and keeping this one close. Maryland is so much better at home. Go back and look. Took Nebraska to the wire, took Washington to the wire. I know Nebraska and Washington aren't Michigan. I'm just saying they're a significantly better team at home than they are on the road. I do think that, yes, I'm putting Michigan on upset alert. I do think, though, the play here is Maryland to cover. Just saying. And actually, since we're already talking about bets, let's just move into that right away. So, this is going to be, I've decided this week it is going to be strictly spreads and team props. Um, I can't do player props where I live. So I only can see team props and then obviously your regular bets. So I said the last week I'm going to do, or I guess in the last episode, I'm going to do this a little differently. Um, I'm just going to run through all my bets. I'll tell you which ones are my favorites, but I'm giving you all the bets that I have written down. And honestly, there's not a lot this week. I think there's 9. Well, possibly 10. So starting with, and this one's actually okay. So yeah, there's not 10. Here, this one's an either or. If you think that Oklahoma's gonna win convincingly, not convincing, convincingly, if you think Oklahoma's gonna win, then take Mizzou under 155.5 rushing yards. If you think Mizzou's rushing attack is good enough to move the ball against this Oklahoma defense, I would take Mizzou plus 7.5 at minus 120. It's just whatever way because that's where that game's coming down to. It's Oklahoma's run defense against Mizzou's rushing attack. Whichever one you think is going to win, bet accordingly. Uh, BYU minus 2.5. This is a favorite. I, again, I said this feels like a disaster game for Cincinnati. BYU to cover minus 2.5, minus 114. USC plus 9.5 at minus 102. This is also one of my favorites because I already mentioned it. USC's passing attack has already been tested. Oregon's has been tested by Rutgers and Indiana. Not saying that Indiana's is a bad passing attack and that Rutgers is terrible either. I mean, they're the top 50. They're not USC though. And kind of relaying off of that, USC over 250.5 receiving yards. I mean, you're telling me Jaden Mayava can't throw it for more than 250? Come on. That's not one of my favorites. USC covering, though, is one of my favorites. So that's BYU to cover, USC to cover. Another favorite, Minnesota to cover. And I guess I'm not really doubling up on that one. We'll get into the Power 4 later. Power 4 parlay later. Minnesota to cover 3.5 at minus 106. Minnesota's going to win this game. I just feel very confident in that. And I feel like when I bet on Minnesota, it doesn't always work out for me, but I feel very confident that they win this game. Here's one that doesn't have a line on it yet, but as soon as it comes out, I'm hitting it. So I guess we could call this a potential. We could call it a favorite, I guess. But there's no line on it yet. Whatever number they come out with, I'm betting the over on Arizona State rushing yards. Jeff Sims is going to dominate that Colorado defense. Raleek Brown and I don't remember the other running backs for Arizona State are going to dominate that Colorado defense. So whatever the number they put out there, that's what I'm taking on the over. Maryland plus 13.5 at minus 102. Not a favorite. but borderline favorite. Penn State to cover -8.5. I think Penn State dominates Nebraska. I really do. So Penn State -8.5 at -105. And then piggybacking off of that, I think part of the reason that they win by so much is they have no problem running the ball. Give me Penn State over 181.5 rushing yards at -114. And then the Power 4 Moneyline Parlay. Give me Cal from the ACC, Iowa State from the Big 12, Tennessee from the SEC, Minnesota from the Big 10. That's plus 897. I'm excited for this weekend of college football. Like I mentioned, it's not my favorite just because of all the SEC buys, but I'm still excited for this weekend. I think it's going to be a good weekend. Um, we're doing it again on Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, live on YouTube. Come join me. Hop in the chat. I'm very new to doing live, so I try to read the chat, but I struggle a little bit. But yeah, we're trying it. See how it goes the rest of the season. So join me live Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Enjoy the football. Happy betting, and I will talk to you then.